Hello and welcome. The Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers benchmark was released a couple of days ago, and since then I've been doing some testing. And this video will go over some of that. If you're after race information, job skills, the new areas, things like that, this is not the video you are looking for. If you're already playing the PC version of Final Fantasy XIV, you don't really need to run the benchmark to tell you how it performs because it's not going to be that different. Let's get on to some actual test results. To start with, let's see how performance scales with the CPU. I'm running this on my main gaming system, which has an Intel i7 8086K, and it's paired with an Nvidia 1080 Ti. As standard, the CPU runs with 6 cores and has 12 threads, and using the BIOS options I can limit those. By turning off hyperthreading, I reduce the threads to equal to cores, and also I can reduce the core counts to 4 or 2 as well. I should add that only for this test I have limited the CPU to a fixed 4 GHz operating speed, just so that turbo and other things don't become another variable. 2 columns are present here for each test scenario. One shows the average frames per second as reported by the benchmark, and also the minimum, again reported by the benchmark. It's actually a new feature introduced with the Shadowbringer benchmark that wasn't present in the Stormblood version. In general, I'm getting just over 150 frames a second for most of these scenarios, but as we start limiting the amount of CPU resource there is, the average frame rate does drop a little bit down to about 140-ish. In the last scenario, which is representative of an older i3. The minimum frame rate also goes down as we reduce the CPU power, so at full power we're running about 60 frames a second, but it's dropping to about 40 frames a second or thereabouts in the minimum configuration here. The main takeaway point here is that the CPU doesn't matter too much. As long as you have, say, at least a quad core or so, you're going to get most of the performance potential from the old graphics card. Since I mentioned the Stormblood benchmark earlier, here is a comparison to the Shadowbringers benchmark, and it's quite obvious to see the results are very close to each other. 3 systems are tested here: the 1080 Ti system I mentioned already. The second system has an RTX 2070 in it, and that's paired with an Intel 7800X. And the third system has a Vega 56 in it, paired with an Intel 6700K. Next, let's have a look at the average frames per second that these systems can produce. I tried all the settings here, so I did 1080p, 1440p and 4K, and I did the maximum, high desktop and standard desktop settings, so this should give a good indication of how they perform relative to each other. At 1080p, none of these systems are struggling to run. They're producing 100 frames a second or higher, so don't really have to worry about it there. Turning up the resolution to 1440p, we're starting to drop a bit more now, but again, in all cases the frame rate is well above 60 frames a second, so still giving decent performance. At 4K is where things really start to struggle. If you want to play at high or maximum quality, then only the 1080 Ti is able to maintain above 60 frames a second average here. The 2070 is close, so you might want to dial back the settings a bit just to keep the frame rate up. The Vega 56 struggles at the higher quality settings, so you have to drop back to standard desktop to maintain a higher frame rate. Now you might be wondering, where are the minimum frame rates that are reported by the benchmark? I decided not to use those so much now, because on this chart you can see how the frame rate varies over time as the benchmark is run. I had to use a different system again on this one, purely because I use Fraps to capture the data and it was only installed on that system. If you look just after 20 seconds, there's a dip in the frame rate there, and I think that is responsible for the minimum, and there are very few places dropping even close to that much. In the benchmark itself, if you rewatch the videos that are around, that is when the Warrior of Light slays the Sin Eaters and they disappear in a particle cloud of some sort, so apparently that's quite demanding. And finally, let's have a look at loading times. The benchmark also reports how much time is spent loading the game data. This is tested on my main game system. I have multiple drivers in it. The fastest drive I have there is an Intel Optane 900p, and that comes in at 10 seconds loading time. Next up are the Crucial and SanDisk SSDs. These are both connected by SATA and they take about 15 seconds, so a little bit slower. The Hitachi hard disk is 30 odd seconds, so quite a difference, and not entirely surprising. Hard disks are slow by today's standards. Having said that, the next Hitachi hard disk I have in this system is paired with Intel Optane memory module. So this acts as a faster cache to speed up loading time. So there's two results for that, one for the first run after copying the files onto it, and it's hardly faster than the other hard disk at that point, at just over 25 seconds. But once it's been cached in there, it significantly speeds up, and the next run is about 12 seconds, so it is considerably faster and comparable to the native SSDs. The last result I called Windows Cache. This doesn't represent a physical device, it is the performance you get when Windows has already saved the files into RAM and it can load it from RAM instead of the disk. So it should be really fast, and as the numbers show, it is fast. To measure that in a benchmark, I had to go to the settings. Here on the Others tab, there is miscellaneous settings at the bottom, and the middle of those is checked by default. Basically it is removing the data from RAM so that it is measuring the fresh load time every time the benchmark runs. So if you uncheck that option, it allows the data to be kept in RAM, and every time you run it after that, it doesn't have to load it from the disk and it saves a bit of time. That's it for this video. It was more work than expected, and I feel more could be covered if there was unlimited time. If you made it this far, hope you found it interesting. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see. Until then, bye for now.